Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, we'll be joined by Howard Mergler, who serves as president of the Mid-Atlantic Organized Retail Crime Alliance, or MAORCA. He's also the regional director of law enforcement for the Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail. That's CLEAR. He's a nationally recognized expert in combating organized retail crime, and he's developed special training programs and leads investigations focused on South American organized theft groups. All that coming up, really fascinating conversation. But first, this word from our sponsor. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Joined by Howard Mergler, Detective Sergeant with the police department in Virginia. You don't go by Howard Mergler though. We're going to call you Merg. Does that work? Okay. So just so everyone knows, like, I'm not just deciding to give you a nickname. Everyone calls you Merg. That's pretty much what everybody knows. Now you're with two organizations here: the Mid-Atlantic Organized Retail Crime Alliance and CLEAR, the Coalition for Law Enforcement and Retail. Tell us a little bit about each of those organizations and tell us about your role with each.
So I am the president of the Mid-Atlantic Organized Retail Crime Alliance, or MAORCA as it's commonly referred to. This organization's a group that works with law enforcement retailers to connect them together, help them work investigations and cases that obviously are related to organized retail crime. So we will do training. We'll try to do seminars. We had one of our first real conference this past fall in a long time after COVID and everything. So that was great. We had about 125 people come to our conference for that. And it was a great place where we can give training to people in retail as well as law enforcement and have them actually network and come together. So that way, it's really the relationships between retailers and law enforcement is how we're going to make an impact in kind of fighting and combating organized retail crime. So that's one of the biggest parts of having these meetings and conferences and trainings.
We hear so much about the importance of those relationships. I wonder if we could start here. Can you give us an idea of, in your area in Virginia or in the Mid-Atlantic more generally, how bad has organized retail crime gotten to be as an issue for retailers and for law enforcement there? We have sort of an idea of what it's like where we're from, but give me the inside scoop on what it's like in that area.
I mean, just like every place else in the country, we're definitely seeing an impact from it. There are lots of different reasons why organized retail crime has, increased or become more prevalent in the most recent years. Obviously, with COVID, you had a slowing down of, retail business. So the amount of money that retailers put forth towards loss prevention and the amount of workers they had in stores decreased, which in turn allowed people to come in and kind of steal almost at will in some cases. In recent years, we've kind of had a more uptick of loss prevention and law enforcement trying to take action in regards to that. But we still see a large amount of organized retail crime in the sense that we're still seeing organized groups like the South American theft groups, Romani organized crime groups, or even Asian or Chinese organized crime groups that are coming in and performing actions in our jurisdiction or other jurisdictions and bringing proceeds into our jurisdictions.
How have those patterns evolved over the past few years? I mean, you said you sort of mentioned the pandemic and what the problem is now. Has it been growing steadily worse since the pandemic? Have you seen sort of it leveling off at all?
I don't know if you can really say it's leveled off. I don't really think you can say it's gone up or down because what happens is that there seems to be certain trends that occur in these areas and they kind of go in waves. So while one particular style of crime might decrease, all of a sudden you start seeing people paying more attention to another style. So it's not necessarily that the first style is really decreased. It's just that all of a sudden there might be a new style of crime that is kind of piquing people's interests and they're paying more attention to it. But I don't think it's necessarily, we're seeing necessarily a decrease in all these. And at the same time, yes, I think there is, numbers to show that there is an increase, but I think it's because, people are paying more attention to it now than they had before, which is a good thing because it obviously does have a significant impact on, the public safety, law enforcement, stores, and the economy overall.
What's been your approach to collaboration with retailers and loss prevention teams when it comes to investigating organized retail crime cases?
One of the biggest things is to just make sure that people are communicating with each other. So it's, I think I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but you have to have that partnership between law enforcement and retail. If you don't have that partnership, if one isn't getting along with the other, you're not going to get anywhere. So with that, you have to have that partnership where when law enforcement, is routinely, and retailers will say it, all the law enforcement does is come in, they just ask. And law enforcement has to realize that it has to be a two-way street. It has to be a situation where they have to provide information back. So if they know of, groups that are hitting a particular area of it and doing certain types of crimes, they need to make sure they relay that information to the retailer so that the retailers can, adjust how they, maybe put out their merchandise, what areas of the stores are watching. If that doesn't happen, then you're not going to have that collaboration, for down the road.
What role does technology play in your ORC investigations, and how has that changed your investigative process, if at all?
So there are basically, I think you can almost articulate, I'd say at least three things that have really come into play when it comes to technology. The first is the cameras. There are a lot of times when people would put out a bolo or a bulletin to try to ID somebody, and the kind of joke was like, it's Bigfoot. You think about the Bigfoot video from the 70s where it's a mass walking in the background, you can't tell what it is, and they would put out this information and with a picture of that, and you're like, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to figure out who that is. Stores are definitely increasing the technology and the quality of the cameras they have in the stores, outside the stores, in the parking lots. And with that, we're able to get better, photos and videos of what's going on. You're able to see, tattoos and markings and other significant characteristics of people. Other things, when you think of like the sleight of hand, crime that people do, where they basically, will pocket money when they're paying for $600, they actually only pay $200 because they pocketed $400. In the past, you wouldn't really necessarily be able to see all that. Now with the cameras that these stores have, you literally can see them actually fold the money as they take it and they put it in their pocket. You're seeing all that, which helps us now to kind of, when we go to court, you can kind of articulate, here's the actual crime. You can actually see them doing it. So you have those benefits there. One of the next big things, obviously, is the increase of LPRs out there. The LPR systems, for all purposes, is a game changer with regards to helping us identify who criminals are, where they have been.
Tell me what an LPR system is.
Sorry, LPR license plate readers.
Right.
So it's not something that the law enforcement uses willy-nilly. Excuse me. But more along the lines where, if subjects were seen running out into the parking lot and getting into a black four-door car, and the car starts to leave the parking lot, you can use that LPR system or LPR cameras in the area to see if you can try to figure out the tag, the license plate on that car. And once you have a license plate, that opens up a world of investigative possibilities if you're trying to identify who the person is. They can also be used in certain ways in the sense that if you know that your criminal has been to Mall 1 at this particular time, Mall 2 at this time, and Mall 3 at this time, but you still don't have any kind of idea as to what car they're using, you might be able to use LPRs to figure out, hey, are there any unique cars that went to these 3 malls at these 3 different times on one day? Because most likely, one person, a normal shopper that's going out there, is not hitting all 3 of these malls at those 3 particular times. So that, once again, can help you identify who they are. Also, the idea is with the LPRs, it helps you to track them. Once you've identified a person or a vehicle, and you know what vehicle they're using, you can then start seeing where that car is going. Are they going to other jurisdictions? Are they going to other malls in other states? And you can actually start liaising with people in those other jurisdictions because if they're doing crimes in your jurisdiction, there's a good chance they're doing crimes in those other jurisdictions as well.
Yeah.
And then finally, one of the big things obviously is with the ORCAs, MAORCA, we have our platform they use that's hosted by Aura. And with that, that allows retailers and law enforcement to collaborate with each other. They can post bulletins and post information about crimes happening in their area. And the retailers and law enforcement across the country can even see those and see if maybe someone that's, hitting their area might be hitting somewhere across the country. So those three things have really changed how we do our jobs.
That's really interesting stuff. How do you, I'm wondering if you could share a specific case study that highlights the complexity of ORC investigations. Can you just walk me through one where you say, man, this will give you a good idea of what we're up against?
So kind of using some of these things, we had a case where a subject stole credit cards from a yoga studio and used them at the local mall. Along with that, a couple of days later, there was another theft at another location. And upon pulling up surveillance video from both incidents at the mall, I was able to recognize it appeared to be the same person that was doing it. Everything kind of matched up. Where they went to, the stores kind of all matched up as well. And we find a lot of times criminals that do this, they kind of have a certain MO with regards to even like where they like to go and shop with the stolen credit cards. So with that, I was able to, because of some things he did, I was able to fairly quickly identify who I thought he was. But even with that, there was still a lot of work that needed to be done. With that, I kind of was able to figure out with regards to cars, he was using different cars each time, and I kind of realized he was actually using a rideshare, but I don't know which rideshare. So I have to actually start doing investigating on that aspect. You're writing court orders, you're writing search warrants to the different companies to try to identify who that rider was at that particular time that picked up or dropped off that particular rider. And then along with that, once I was able to kind of get a little more information, kind of figure out what he was doing and how he did it, I was able to actually, using these additional court orders and search warrants, I think there was probably between 12 to 15 search warrants or court orders written for this one particular case. But with that, I'm realizing with this pattern, I'm seeing other locations and other jurisdictions that he's affecting. So with that, I'm now reaching out to these other jurisdictions, trying to see, hey, if people made police reports, because I know on this date and time, most likely there was a theft from this gem and charges probably at this mall. So trying to find that out. Now,
you go find someone who's working on probably trying to catch the same guy for similar crimes, and now you're working together because you've started to piece that together.
It's very possibly, and in some cases you're doing that. But in some cases, most cases when people have their credit card stolen, believe it or not, they actually don't call the police. What do? They call the bank, and the bank says, don't worry, we got you. It's taken care of. You don't have to worry about those charges. And the person kind of just lets it go at that. So because of that, now I'm trying to figure out who maybe these victims are to try to get a hold of these victims who never reported it to police, but now I'm trying to get in touch with them in another state and try to get them to contact police, make a report. And then by then, you're all now working with these, with the stores, and you're working with the gyms or the yoga studios to see, hey, do they still have the records? Do they still have the surveillance video from these cases?
Sounds like the technology then isn't just a matter of, it is helping you put the pieces together, but it's connecting you with other people who are putting the pieces together. That's got to be a big help, that coordination with other law enforcement, even outside of your jurisdiction.
Absolutely. And that's where one of the reasons why the ORCAs are around, it's to help create those contacts and create the connections that you need from your jurisdiction when you're trying to reach someone in another jurisdiction. So, obviously, MAORCA is the Mid-Atlantic area. We cover, basically, we're one of the broadest ORCAs in the sense of the multiple states we cover. Obviously, area-wise, it's not the largest. There's some that are larger than us. But, we cover Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Virginia, and West Virginia. So we can we have those contacts in place for all those, for many jurisdictions in all those different states. But at the same time, you are still creating contacts and connections in jurisdictions elsewhere and for retailers elsewhere. One of the things that I've kind of been happy to be able to do is that when someone in our area where I work out of needs a contact, in the Midwest. They needed someone on the West Coast or in Texas. They can come to me, and I will most likely have someone that they can reach out to, or I'm going to find someone that they can reach out to. And it's all about these connections that allow these cases to progress further, and for us to be able to actually identify people and hopefully arrest people and bring people to court for that.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this final question. What resources or support do law enforcement agencies need to more effectively combat organized retail crime?
I would say, and I understand that retailers sometimes are in a fickle place with regards to how they have to deal with theft. When you have your high luxury brands, and even some of your just, not even necessarily your high luxury brands, pretty much every retailer out there is concerned about their reputation, their image of how it looks when it's in the news. They want obviously a positive image. Theft doesn't necessarily have a positive image. So with that, a lot of companies are a little more close to the chest with regards to providing information to law enforcement, putting the information out there, and letting people know what's going on with their companies. With that, law enforcement, we understand that, but in order for us to help you or help these retailers, we need them to be a little more open to us. We need to kind of, it needs to be realized, and everybody knows, people have stuff stolen from everywhere. No matter what kind of place, what kind of business you are, you're going to have stuff that was stolen from you. It's not necessarily a bad thing that stuff gets stolen from you. It happens. But in order for us, law enforcement, to better help you, we just need at least that, maybe a little more openness. And then the one other aspect is regards to when it comes time for court. Retailers, a lot of times when the bad person is caught, the criminal is caught, the merchandise is recovered, they get their stuff back. And at that point, they're not really too much concerned sometimes for court because they have everything back. The person is, banned or trespassed from their property. So they don't necessarily think they have to worry about that person anymore. But the system, it's a full system in regards to, retailers have the incident, they report it to the police hopefully arrest the person, get the merchandise back, they charge the person, but then hopefully the idea is we get to the court system and we get through that court system where the person that did that theft can be held responsible for what they did. If it stops once they get their stuff back, the merchandise back, and they're said, just don't come back, that person doesn't necessarily see that there's repercussions for what they do. And they're going to tell other people that. They're going to say, hey, look, if you go here, if you go to this jurisdiction, or if you go to this business, yeah, you might get caught, but you don't have to worry about it. And if they start telling other people that, that's going to make more people come to the place where you don't want them to come steal from. So those are the two biggest areas I see. And once again, it's not a knock on retailers. I understand why they do what they do. It's just one of those things where we hope that they can help us out a little bit more than they already do. And they help us out tremendously. The information and intel we get from retailers and from loss prevention, we couldn't do our job without it. So, once again, very thankful for what they do. But I guess I'm being a little greedy. I'm just saying, hey, can you give us a little more?
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, LVT. And don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode, because we drop one every 2 weeks. We're also on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can find links for all that in the show notes below. Thanks for being with us, everyone, and keep up the good fight.